Hi, this video is about n8n triggers or trigger nodes. I will cover every possible n8n triggers available one by one with proper example. And trust me, this is the only video you need to become a master at it. And without wasting any time, let's dive in. Trigger nodes are the starting point of a workflow. That is where the whole workflow begins. They initiate the workflow and produce the initial data, which means, say, our starting node or trigger node is a chat message, which means the initial data which we'll be producing is the chat message which we are entering to the chat console, and it passes that data to other nodes in the workflow. Also, trigger node define when or how a workflow begins by listening for a specific events or conditions. That specific events can be many things. It can be a button click, it can be a chat message, or it can be other app events like when I receive an email in my Gmail inbox, or an entry in a Google Sheet, or an entry in an Airtable. There are many. So that also can be a trigger point. There are different types of trigger nodes. Let's see one by one. First is manual trigger. As the name indicates, that is a button click. When we click the button, it starts the execution. Next is on app event. As I've mentioned, app event can be any kind of app event. There are many app events available in n8n. If I want to list few examples, when you send a message from Telegram, it can trigger the workflow. When you have added a new entry in a Google Sheet, that also can trigger a workflow. So any kind of apps can trigger the workflow in n8n. Next one is on schedule. As the name indicates, we can schedule a workflow. For example, trigger the workflow every 1 hour, every 1 day, or even we can give cron expressions. Next is Webhook Call. We can make an API. I'll explain that when we do the exercises. We can make an API and think a scenario like this. You have a web application and you want to trigger a web application on a button click from your web form. So then what you can do is you can generate a webhook call from n8n. Then you can call that API by passing the data which you want. That is on webhook call. Next is form submission. n8n can produce a form and we'll get a shareable link. And when someone submits that form, then that can trigger the workflow. Next one is executed by another workflow. So we can make another workflow as a trigger to this workflow. Then on chat messages, as the name indicates, we can generate a chat console, and when we enter a chat message, it will trigger the workflow. So these are the different types of triggers available in n8n. I'm in n8n UI. Let me show you each of the triggers which I've mentioned. Let's begin with a manual trigger because that's the most simplest one. To select the trigger, you can either open the nodes panel from here, that will show the all triggers available, or you can click on the plus button here and click on triggers manually. You can see in the message that runs the workflow on clicking a button in n8n. Good for getting started quickly. Let us select that and test workflow. You can see that has been executed successfully. And this can be the trigger point, the whole workflow. Say you have 100 nodes, further nodes, which consist in the whole workflow. And when you click the button here, it will trigger the whole workflow. This node itself will not generate any data. The reason because that's just a click. When you double click on that, you can see there is no output data. So that is the manual trigger, pretty simple. And now let us see the next trigger. Let's go with on chat message trigger. Now let's see on chat message trigger. Let me delete this one. Click on the plus button and you can see here on chat message trigger. You can read that run the flow when a user sends a chat message for use with AI nodes, which means we can send a chat message. It can be anything. It can be a question or anything. And we can send that message to the AI models, for example, ChatGPT, or to any other LLM models. Let's add on chat message here and we can go back to the canvas and let us test that. Either we can open chat from here or from here. Let me open chat from here and we can ask any questions or anything. Let me ask hi there. And when I hit enter, it will execute this trigger. Let's see that in action. Okay, that has been executed and this produces an output. That output can be the input to the next node. That can be an LLM model or an AI model, for example, ChatGPT. To see the output, double click here and you can see the message which we have sent. And this message, as I mentioned, we can pass to the subsequent node. So that's about on chat message. Now let us see on schedule trigger. Now let's see on schedule trigger in action. As the name indicates, we can schedule the trigger. Schedule in number of days, hours, minutes, seconds, or even custom interval. Click on this button here and select on schedule. You can see here runs the flow every day, hour, or custom interval. On schedule, and here you can select the interval which you want. You can see everything here. And for now, let me select seconds and run every 2 seconds. We can test it here. It's all fine. Go back to the canvas. And one important thing to notice when running a trigger, if in case this is inactive, you should make this active. Then only schedule trigger will work as per the schedule we have given. Let me make that active. And now let us see the executions. For that, go to executions here, select that one and let it load. Now you can see that has been executed. Let's wait for another 2 seconds. And also you can see that has been executed. So that is working fine. Let's go back to the editor. And now let us try custom one, that is cron expression. And you can give the cron expression here. I'm giving it as 2 minutes. Of course, we cannot test it now because we have to wait for 2 minutes. But this is how the cron expression works. And we can test from this window. But for the actual schedule to pick that up, we have to wait for 2 minutes. This is how schedule trigger works. And now next let us check on webhook call trigger. Now let's see on webhook call trigger in action. On webhook call trigger is a way to trigger your n8n workflow from outside of n8n. It can be from your web app, from your mobile app, or from your IoT device, or from Postman, or even a simple curl request. So you can, because basically that's a HTTP call, you can trigger anywhere outside. And the example we are going to look at today is we are using Postman to mock the scenario. We'll post a customer data, and immediately after we send that customer data, that will trigger the n8n workflow. That's what we are going to look at today. Set the on webhook call, click on that plus button and click on webhook call. And here we can see the URL, and you can also select which HTTP method you want. All the HTTP verbs has been displayed like delete, get, head, patch, post, and put. I'm selecting post because we are posting customer data. Select post and authentication. In real world, you have to set authentication to make this secure, but the sake of this demo, I'm making it as I'm not selecting any authentication mechanism and respond immediately. And to receive a message from outside, you can click, to test this basically. Listen for test event, you can click that one. But before that, let me go to Postman. Let me copy this URL from here and go to Postman. Let me make a post request. Enter the URL here and go to the body and select row and JSON. Let me copy a sample JSON data which consists of customer data. And here we have customer ID, first name, last name, email, phone, and address. When we send this data, we should be able to see the workflow has been triggered, and we should also be able to see the output of the workflow should be this JSON. Let me go and listen for the test event. Let me click on that one. And now this is ready to receive the data. Let me go back to Postman and click on send, and we should be able to see a message. Yeah, workflow was started. Let me go back here and we can see the data which we have sent in the body of that message. This is in table format. Let me select JSON, and we should be able to see in the body the customer data has been received. And this is exactly the same data which we have sent from Postman. We can see even the trigger has been executed successfully. And real world, you'll have many further nodes here that process that customer data and do some kind of automation. So that is everything about on webhook call. Now let us see on form submission trigger. Now let's see on form submission in action. With on submission trigger, we can generate a custom form, and we can send the link, the URL to the form to anyone. And when they submit that form, then the node will be triggered. That's on form submission trigger. Let's see that. Okay, click on that plus button again here and select on form submission. You can see generate web forms in n8n and pass their response to the workflow. Again, a real world example, you can create an employee form for an employee to enter their details, and as soon as they enter their details and submit that form, the workflow will be triggered, and there's an automation in place based on that employee data. Let's see that. Select on form submission, and here you can see the test URL, and if you make it to production, you can see the production URL as well here. Let me select the test URL for now, and you can add authentication here, but for now I'm leaving it as none. But in real world, always make your APIs secure, or any web application secure. Form title, I'm giving this as employee data, and you can give a description here. I'm just giving testing n8n, and the field name, let's say instead of first name and last name for testing, let's give full name here, and the element type is text, that's a text box, and placeholder enter full name, that's a placeholder, and we can make that as a required field. Let us add next form element, and that is email, for example. That's also a text field, and you can enter the placeholder, enter mail here, and that is also a required field. Now let us add one more form element that is not a text box. Let's say a role of the employee, and we can select. You can see here there are a lot of fields available here, element types available here. Let me select drop down, and you can have different options here. Let's say junior developer, and another field option is senior developer and manager. You can add as much as you want. Okay, these are the different fields, and I'm not making drop down as a mandatory here, required field here. If you want, we can select for multiple choice, then user can pick multiple one, but in our case, an employee will have only one role, so I'm leaving not enabling multiple choice, and that is not required field as well. Now the form is ready, and when we test this step, let me go here and copy that URL, and we can test it from here, and that opens a nice form, and you can see the data which we have entered here, or the fields which you have given, that is full name, and the placeholder enter full name. Let me give John Doe as a full name, and the email johndoe@example.com, and the role, you can see we have given these roles here, and you can select one of that, and John Doe is a senior developer. And immediately after we hit the submit button, this will be triggered because it's already listening, and we'll be able to see all the data which we have entered here. Also, you can see the title and description we have given to the form. This is basically a form, a custom form, which we build on our own using n8n. And when we hit submit, that will trigger the workflow, and you can see that has been executed. You can see form submitted. Let us see the data. Let me close this window, and you can see the data which we have received here, the full name, email, and role, and the date and time as well. And form mode is test because we are in test mode. If you want to see the data in table format, you can see it here, and this is the schema. So that's all about on form submission trigger. Now next, look at on app event. Now let us see on app event trigger in action. On app event basically enables workflows to execute automatically when a specific event occurs. That event can be anything. For example, when you receive an email in your inbox, or when someone uploaded an image to AWS S3, or made some changes in the database, or when someone make a change in a Google Sheet. The list is pretty big. You can see the whole list here when you click on this plus button, and when you select on app event, you can read here, runs the flow when something happens in an app like Telegram, Notion, or Airtable. The list is pretty big. You can hear Airtable, you can see few of the AWS services like DynamoDB, Lambda recognition, S3, SQS. The list is pretty big. You can almost do anything from here. Okay, let's do an example. Let's make Google Sheet as a trigger. When I make some changes in the Google Sheet, when I added a new row or when I update something in the existing row, that should trigger on app event trigger. Okay, let's do that example. For that, select Google Sheets, and I need to make a trigger when a new row added or updated. Select that one. We need to connect to a Google Sheet. For that, select credential and create credential. The good thing about n8n is their documentation is pretty nice. They have a detailed documentation on everything. So select open doc, and let's see how we can make a connection. Open doc, and we need to go to Google Cloud Console, and we have to create a new project. For that, go to console.google.com, and we have to create a new project. For that, select project from here. At the moment, I don't have any project. Click on new project, and here we have to give a name for the project. Let me give the name n8n on app event trigger, and click on create. It will take few seconds, and go to APIs and services. Click here, go to APIs and services, and what they're saying next is library, and select API you want to enable. Okay, and go to library, and we need Google Sheets. That's one we need to enable. Search for Google Sheet and select Google Sheet and enable it. It will take a few seconds. That has been enabled. Let us go back to APIs and services. And the next step is when you come here, request API access. For that, go to credential, and here we can create a credential and click on OAuth client ID. There you can configure a consent screen. Click on here and click on get started, and you can give an app name. I'm giving the name n8n on app event demo. Support mail, I'm selecting my email. Click on next, and the audience you can select external. Click on next, and contact information. You can give your email. I'm going to give my email, and click on next. Agree for the conditions. Click on continue and create. OAuth configured created. You can see it here, and click on OAuth client and select type web application from here, and you can give a name n8n demo app, and you have to configure the authorized redirect URLs. For that, go back to n8n, copy this URL, click and copy, come back here and give the authorized redirect URL here, and click on create, and it will create a client ID and client secret. Click on this link here and copy the client ID from here. Go back to n8n and give the client ID, and come back here and copy the client secret as well and enter that as well. Now you need to log in with Google account. I'm pausing the video for a bit I don't want to show you all of my emails. So basically it will pop up to enter your Google credential. You can enter that. Okay, I'll enter and come back in a bit. When I try to enter the credential, I got this error. And if you get this error, what you can do is you can close this window and go back to the Google console here, and go to audience and publish this app. Click on push to production, click on confirm, and that has been published. Now let us try to connect with sign in Google again. You will get this message. If you get that message, that's not a problem. Click on advanced and go to this link, and it will ask the permission. You can select all. You can check all the permission you want. I'm selecting all and click on continue. And now you can see this has been connected. Now you can close this window. So we have made the connection to Google Sheet. And now let us make a Google Sheet and make an entry also there. Let me close this pop-up window and let me go to Google Drive and create a new sheet here. Okay, let's name the sheet here n8n demo. Let's make an employee record, employee name, age, and a role. At the moment, we don't have any entry here. Let me save it and let me copy this URL. We can connect to sheet with URL as well. Let me come here. It is not showing anything in the list. Let us try to give the URL. Okay, and sheet 1. Let us try to fetch. Okay, there is something wrong. If you get this error, what you can do is you can simply copy this URL and paste it in the console. You might need permission to Google Drive API as well. Click on enable that as well. Okay, after we should be able to see the trigger has been connected to the Google Sheet. Okay, we got that permission. Go back to workflow again. Let us pick from the list. This time it should be able to see that list, n8n demo. That is the sheet we have created, and the sheet name is sheet 1. Now let us try to fetch. Okay, we did not get any data. Maybe we have selected a different. Let's do one thing. Let's rename this to a different one. n8n Google Sheet Trigger. Okay, and let us rename the sheet name to something else, employee, for example. Okay, let's come back to here and let us select it back from the list. Okay, this time we should be able to see it has been loaded. Let's do one thing. Let us refresh. Okay, maybe select back, come back, still not there. This has been saved. Okay, let me refresh the page once, and after refreshing, that has been gone. Okay, that's not a problem. Let us add sheets once again here from own app event, search for Google Sheets, and own row added and updated. We already have the connection created, and from list, and here now we can see n8n Google Sheet Trigger, and we should be able to see the sheet name as well, that is employee, and the trigger is row added or updated. Let us try to fetch, and we don't have any output. Of course, we didn't have any output. That's the reason it didn't display anything before. Let us try to add the name is John, age is 25, and role is a junior developer. Okay, now let us come back here. It has been saved. Let us try to fetch the data. Now we can see it is getting data from the Google Sheet. Okay, and let us make the trigger to every 1 minute. Okay, which means if we make any changes in the Google Sheet, let's say I am adding a new record here, and then this should be triggered in every 1 minute. We can give custom as well, but I'm going to give every 1 minute. Okay, and go back to the workflow and save it. Let me make it active. Got it. And let's go to the execution. From here you can see the last executed one is on this time. Let me add a new entry here, do, and age is 45, and the role is manager, for example. Let me save it and let me come back here. I'm going to pause the video. You don't need to wait for 1 minute, but you can note the time here, and after a minute this should be executed with the new data which we have updated. Let's see that. Okay, now you can see something has been triggered. Let us see. Click on that one, and when we open that, we should be able to see the new record which we have added, that is do, age 45, and manager. So this is on app trigger. Let's go back to the editor, and this is on app trigger. So as I've mentioned, that the list of own app trigger which we can configure is a lot. Let me show it once again. On app event, you can see all these lists. We can almost do anything, any trigger. Okay, now we have covered all kind of triggers in n8n: trigger manually, on app event, on schedule, webhook call, form submission, executed by another workflow that's a bit advanced. So I'm not going to take you through that at this moment, but in my feature videos, you can expect that. We have tried on chat message and other ways as well. You don't need it quite often. That's even a bit advanced, but whatever taken you through, that's applicable for 99% of the case, or 99.9% of the case. So that's all about n8n triggers. I hope I have given some value to you. And if you think the same, please give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thank you.